Welcome back, everybody. We are here at the final game of the fourth day of the 2025 Scrabble Players Championship Collins Division. If you weren't following along for the last game, we did see Dennis Kekarigor and Alex Seaholm play to a very thrilling finish. Dennis won the game, but thanks to some fortunate wins from some others, we have Alec and Dennis in the finals.
Yeah, going to be an exciting matchup here, nevertheless. Ben Schoenbrun versus Austin Shin. We've got a lot of money still on the line, at least $1,000 or so. I know NWL is very exciting, but this stream is for Collins, so we are going to bring you as much action as we can. Collins is the international lexicon. I strongly encourage people to play it. How about people tell us what country they're from to show that this is a truly global audience? People in the chat.
Yep, chat. Tell us where you're from, or tell us where you're watching from if it's somewhere cool. Collins is the international lexicon, so we've surely got viewers from all over the world. Depending on how the time zones line up, I'm sure a lot of Collins players are asleep right now. But some of them might be staying up late or waking up early to catch these great games.
We've got Scotland, Nigeria in the audience. So, yeah.
So we see Alec and Dennis a lock for the finals, which will start tomorrow, a best-of-5 finals. But as you said, Matt, a lot of money still at stake for all these players. I think this division is paying down to 9, I think, if I remember that correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong. So these people that we see on this list are still fighting for some cash.
Yeah, for sure. I think Ben still with a chance at 4th. He might need to hope that the right people lose the right games, but I think he still has a shot at 4th, maybe even 3rd. A win here will certainly help. We've got Scotland and Nigeria represented in the audience. Thank you so much for tuning in. It has got to be pretty late in both of those countries, but we really appreciate it. I think we're going to cut to the players playing now.
Yeah, so Austin, we see, won his last game against Sami Okasaga. That is what enabled both Dennis and Alec to clinch the finals, so they're probably patting Austin on the back for that one. We see Austin in pretty good place here to finish strongly in this tournament, while Ben's kind of making one last attempt to claw up the standings.
Yeah, Ben could still make a run at something. I think 4th is basically a lock if he can go 4-0. A 3rd might not be possible. Austin currently in 4th, in a very good spot to reach 3rd. He is only half a game behind Sami, so a lot of exciting action still to come here in Collins.
Let's see. Ben has 4 tiles. We actually didn't see his 7th one. I think he drew it and never even put it on his rack. So we're a little bit in the dark here, Matt. Let's see what he plays.
Yeah, I don't know what Ben is doing. Probably very sure of what he's going to start with. He's got Quip.
Yep, that is definitely the play out of those letters, so it makes sense that he would immediately go for it. Just has to think about the position a little bit. Here he is setting up Quipu and Quippo, but he also has to be aware of setting up Equip if he puts it somewhere differently. So a few things to think about on that turn.
Yeah, no, I can't fault him for this placement. Definitely more dangerous to set up Equip. We see Austin with an E. In this case, he will be stuck between a couple of different choices. Not the greatest options.
Yeah, I think we're definitely seeing something involving Equip on this turn. It just remains to be seen what. He could go for maximum points here with Yield. That would keep AG, which is, you don't want to keep the G. The G is, I think there's a meme floating out there that the G is the worst tile in the game. It's not quite the worst, but it's not very good. So I would be tempted by Yield, but maybe would try to think of something else.
Yeah, and this is one of those spots where maybe I would look for a couple of other options. There might be a way to be more defensive with an underlap. This time with Austin's specific rack, no good way to do that. So I think we're going to see yield coming down. This makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think this is a good play. It sort of guarantees that the board stays a little bit open, which I think plays to Austin's benefit. He is the one with the famous mantra, scoring never stops.
Yeah, I think Ben with an interesting rack kind of looks like there's a double double, but there actually isn't. Ben might have to spend a lot of time looking for that, though. Very attractive looking letters alongside the blank. I know I would be looking for a double double for a while. Ultimately, though, there isn't one. There's actually just a lot of 83 pointers with equips. Charles, how are you going to decide which one of them to play?
Yeah, I think it comes down to which ones don't put an S hook here. Like something like Reposal would not be good for that reason. You're also looking not to expose these triple letter scores too much with vowels. We see Ben doing something that I think checks all the boxes here. He's going for paroles, which plays good defense with the triple letter scores. Doesn't make any more accessible spots on the bottom. I think this is a good idea.
Yeah, one other interesting option is Parasol. A Parasol slots slightly fewer floaters and it partially obstructs yields at the expense of opening up a double. Another interesting choice. But yeah, we are going to see Parlor's Parasol actually doing very well in the sim. I might have thought that that would be a creative choice, but Parlor's hard to argue with. Sorry, Paroles.
We've got Austin here now with two A's and a U, some uninspiring consonants to go with those. He does have a really nice play, scoring play to the right of paroles. That would be the 37-point Ganef. That scores nicely, keeps AU, but I think the points are kind of hard to turn down. At this point in the game, he's already down by 70. He's down by enough where he needs to keep the scoring pressure up.
Yeah, for sure. Gonna be already kind of tricky to come back. Ganef scoring 37 points. Gonna be hard to quibble with. I don't love the AU leave either, but often in these spots you have to be a bit proactive, and that might involve scoring and then hoping to bingo and then getting a bingo.
Yeah, I guess one downside of Ganef here is it does block a lot of kind of fruitful lanes for eights, especially I guess that A and the R feel very nice to bingo through later. Those are kind of going away here. You also are risking high scoring plays immediately to the right if your opponent has the right stuff. So there's a few downsides here, but the biggest upside is just how many points it scores. And at this deficit, I think you just take the points.
Yeah, very good choice by Austin Ganef. Unfortunately, going to be hard to find a way to reopen this board after this. Maybe he will get something through AN. Ben with the blank, but he's probably got a little bit of rack maintenance work to do if he wants to get a bingo down.
Yeah, I think he's definitely looking to get the J and the U off his rack at the very least. He's got one straightforward option to do that, that being Bujo. That's a bullet journal, so I guess it's Bujo, making OY. That does set up a very straightforward line to immediately hit a 7 next turn. So Ben might like how that looks, but I think it's been a theme in previous games, Matt, with Ben sitting on the blank and a lead. He doesn't necessarily need to open the board at this juncture. He can be patient with his bingo.
Yeah, one interesting option is Jupati. Jupati is very volatile, but The thing it opens requires an S. An S is a lot less of a chance to be on Austin's rack than any of the many front hooks to Oi. Austin having one of those in the F, another one with the T, though he has 5 vowels, he will not be bingoing just yet.
Yeah, kind of a rough draw for Austin. Of course, keeping AU, it was often going to be a rough draw, not a ton of upside with those letters. I think Austin does have a pretty nice play set up here. He's looking at A2 to the right of Ganef. And we were talking a little bit earlier that we didn't like how this kind of closed this area of the board. A2 at least gives you a little bit of a glimmer of hope here in terms of an easier to hit bingo line for the future.
Yeah, A2, the other nice thing about it is it's going to be pretty annoying to deal with. Anything to the right of A2 is going to open the triple, but if you never deal with it, it is just a bingo line that sits there forever that Austin can hope to hit. So I really like that aspect of A2. I think Austin does too, which is why he's putting it down. Very nice play.
Yep, I think this really does check all the boxes. It's basically the perfect play for Austin in this situation. So good recognition in kind of an obscure spot, kind of a weird looking word, one that wouldn't necessarily jump out to you. Going back over to Ben, he's still got the blank, but he did not draw well to go with it after his play of Bujo. He drew C, N, and V. That works with a few floaters. It would work with an O or an E for co-invent. It does not work with anything on this board. He's going to need to figure out what to do.
Yeah, one option I really like is Clint. Clint goes underneath equips, and the really nice thing is that it obstructs several bingo lanes. The front hook to Oi is one that is no longer there, as well as several floaters being obstructed when I'm in the lead. I love that idea.
Yeah, that's actually a decent idea. As we said last turn, Ben doesn't need to rush towards the bingo. He doesn't necessarily need to be fishing here. Something like VN or like playing Vin through equips would be tempting. Just go all out for the bingo as soon as possible. He doesn't need to do that. He is going for a different idea entirely, though, with Vin up top. This does score 20 points and keeps good bingo letters. There's a lot of upside here through the U and the I of equips. So I think this works out for him a lot of the time, but maybe just a different style for Ben on this turn.
Yeah, it's one of those things where maybe the best defense can sometimes be a good offense. Another bingo, maybe putting the game basically out of reach, and CNT blank being more likely to turn into a bingo quickly than VN blank, the C being a great bingo tile, and the consonants sometimes getting bailed out by the U and the I that are available on the board. Austin with another kind of clunky rack. Have to wonder, will he bite the bullet and make his highest scoring plays on the N column, or will he take a more conservative approach?
Yeah, it's hard to say, well, what he should do here. Something like half for 31 points looks very nice, or maybe something like ha. It kind of does a different thing in that area. The real big downside, which I think everybody should see intuitively, is you just get hit. I mean, you are putting the H here, so there's nothing that goes there, but you are getting hit pretty heavily on this triple a lot of the time. In fact, we do see Ben does not have any vowels. So this spot is actually probably going to remain accessible to Austin going into next turn, but Austin can't know that. That's just a kind of a weird twist of fate that Ben managed not to pick a single vowel.
You know, I'm not so sure about that. If Austin plays something like Hoff, I would be heavily inclined to follow up with Waz for 45. On the other hand, if Austin plays haha, Ben still might feel justified in doing something with the blank. It's a very volatile spot to leave open. I'm not sure. Maybe Austin wants to do something. At the very least, maybe he would put his Z there, maybe something like za to obstruct it quite a bit. Austin, with the more conservative approach of fa, seems difficult to argue with, although our computer simulation strongly favoring Hoth and going for broke.
Yeah, I think this play has some merit. It does at first glance look like he's using up his bingo line, but he is in fact setting up maybe a higher value bingo line here. Plays nicely if he draws a bingo starting with an H in this spot. It's going to hit for a massive amount of points. So that does feel good for Austin to create that little bit of extra upside. Meanwhile, Ben has, I guess we see kind of what happens when you play your only vowel with a play like Vin. It can sometimes result in a bad draw like this. But we probably will see something like Whiz here through the Eye of Equips. It seems like the Z, I guess the Z has some upside here. So does he hold it one more turn? What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, gonna be hard to quibble with Wiz. Maybe I am a bit worried about certain two consonant draws kind of leaving me in limbo for one more turn. That said, very hard to go wrong. There's bailouts if Ben does draw two consonants. He can find a way to do some sort of plunk and eventually get a bingo down. So we are going to see Wiz. I think it is pretty hard to quibble with this.
Yeah, again, Ben is in the lead. This is maybe more what we were thinking the past couple turns. He's making a little closed off play. He's actually restricting his own bingo chances, but he doesn't need to rush towards the bingo with such good letters. Just make Austin's life a little bit harder, and then bingo when you can should be Ben's approach in this one.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to argue with something like Wiz. I do get a little worried that my outs to lose are somewhat obvious. Would be something like drawing two consonants, Austin with a bog. I don't see anything wrong with this. It seems like a pretty clear choice. I like the idea.
Yeah, good idea. I think for Austin, he is blocking that lane for sevens, but he's creating new lanes for himself with eights and scoring well, getting rid of the clunky B, G. We see Ben's draw did work out this time. He drew two vowels. Those play perfectly with the C and ST blank that he left. He quickly slaps down his highest scoring bingo. Only double, a cents for 92. A really nice play, spotted quickly.
Yeah, this one's going to be tricky to come back from. And Austin with another one of those racks that looks kind of nice, but does not have a bingo. Maybe he will have to look for a while. That said, it's mostly about looking in the 7-letter rack and through the A. Maybe we go for broke with something like herd. Herd is a little bit tricky to deal with if you don't have an E. Those are the kind of things I think about at this score line. If you play something like hem, Benji will certainly be able to deal with it. If you play something like herd, as we can see with Benji's rack, it's a little bit trickier to deal with. Benji either has to play something like Irk for 21 points or do what he was going to do anyways with the X and risk a bingo on the triple. So that's what I would think about at this score line.
Yeah, Austin is at a pretty big deficit here. So I think going for broke a little bit, as you mentioned, something like herd over here on the right, scores decently, makes a spot that's going to really put some fear into Ben that he needs to address it soon because the outcome could be a 90-point bingo for Austin next turn. I was also trying to see if there's anything cool through this E of ascent that feels like a very natural scoring spot with the H and the M on your rack, but there's nothing really here that scores decently using both the M and the H, which is what I'd be looking to do in that spot. So I think we can probably move on from that spot. If you wanted to play here, he could do something like Remede, Remede, using all his E's. That doesn't feel quite right here, but might be another option.
Yeah, Remede, another pretty proactive option. Not always possible to justify making a play in that area. And then it's kind of like, hey, at least I get the triple. Austin going to need several bingos at this point to really get anything done. Austin is doing very well in this tournament, although he has had a bit of tough luck on stream. If he does not find a way to pull this one out, this will unfortunately be his 6th loss on stream. But as his record shows, he is a better player than that. He is 18-9 despite his bad luck on stream. So, yeah.
That is really brutal. He's got 3 times the amount of wins that he has losses on stream, but we didn't manage to get any of his wins on stream. Just the 2/3 of the games that he's played will have been losses if he can't pull this one out. I would say this one is not over for Austin yet. Something like Herd or even Remede on this turn does give him some upside for high scoring bingos. And then if he can immediately hit another bingo while Ben struggles with some, I think, clunky tiles we're looking at there, there's still a little bit of hope for Austin here. So we wouldn't count him out yet, especially we love saying his motto, scoring never stops. It looks like he's going to keep the scoring up this turn. It's just Ben's been doing too much of that same scoring this whole game.
Yeah, Ben with 2 blank bingos already. Always hard, especially when those blanks come out in the word. Means you can't even try to draw the blank as a way of coming back.
And we see Austin is spending a little bit of time on this turn. He's got Therm set up. I'm curious if he's thinking that Therm might take an ED. We know it doesn't. Otherwise, maybe he's thinking Therm here to set up maybe the outside chance of some triples. But the M in that spot's not a great triple tile. Maybe you end up with something ending in MENT. But it seems a little bit marginal there. I don't think that's the way he should go here.
Yeah, it's one of those spots where there's a very tangible way of coming back. If Ben has 7 consonants, he might not be able to do anything there. Austin with the significantly more aggressive option of Herm. This is an alternative version of Herd. I really like this choice. Another thing where it's going to be very hard to deal with if Ben doesn't have an E, he will be in a tough spot deciding if Urk is worth its defensive merits or if he should score elsewhere and risk something.
Yeah, that'll be a tough decision for Ben if it comes to it. He does have the X kind of in reserve for future scoring punch if he does have to do something minimal like Urk, keeping bad letters. He'll still have this X spot, and he'll still have the spot for his O here next to Obi. So there is still some life for him in terms of scoring. Actually, keeping the X has some upside here in terms of drawing something like Exile, although he would be playing off his I in this situation where he's playing Urk. So I think he would be fine doing something like Urk and just immediately shutting this spot down. At that point, Austin's best bingo spots would be going through the B and the A of bag.
Yeah, Austin probably in one of those spots where he feels the need to do something proactive. This time it will be Remede. Very solid idea. Totally understand what he's going with.
Yeah, and actually TH does have some pretty good synergy here with these open E's. So actually, I do like this play. It's very hard for Ben to, actually, obviously impossible for Ben to deal with all this stuff all at once. So there's still some life here for Austin.
Yeah, Ben with probably a standout option. It scores very well and it's very defensive. See if the people in the chat have spotted it.
Yeah, I'll refrain from drawing with the Telestrator for just a few seconds here. We'll see if chat can come up with it.
Yeah, let's see what the chat comes up with. Austin with another one of what appears to be one of those not quite bingos racks, maybe one too many consonants. Was getting hopeful with the S, but then we saw too many consonants. Doesn't look like he will get anything down this turn.
Yeah, definitely that draw kind of sucks. Again, there are a lot of vowels for Austin to draw here. It's not like he was picking from a bag that had few vowels. It just, the draw didn't work out for him. Even with the open vowels on the board, he's not going to be bingoing next turn unless there's some way for Ben to accidentally put a vowel in the right spot for a 9-letter word. Maybe that's possible somehow, but that seems pretty unlikely. So I guess we've waited enough. We do see Elise in chat solving it. The nice play here is ox-like. I assume that's what you were talking about, Matt.
Yeah, Oxlike would be 44 points, and it would block just about as much as you can hope to block this turn. I think Oxlike is going to be a standout play. Oxid, another interesting option, 28 points, blocking both E floaters. But Oxlike, the points of Oxlike are going to be really hard to argue with.
Yeah, and I think one aspect of Ox, like maybe at first glance you would think this is a little bit dangerous. You are putting the X here, but if Austin does make a play here involving the X, he is going to score well. But then he's cutting off this B. This A is already cut off. It's going to be more cut off. He's just taking away space from himself with a play like that. So maybe it's kind of playing into your hand a little bit when you have a lead to get your opponent to do something like that. I think we see Ben going with the more obvious play of Knox. This is also a very good idea. It does block the E in the same way, doesn't give back quite as much. So I think this one is pretty close to Ox-like.
Yeah, one of the main issues with Ox that we might see is the exact thing Austin has, where hit feels like a really good choice, but hit, that does block a lot of Austin's options. So these are minor quibbles as we see Ben with his godlike drawing skills pulling another bingo.
Yeah, sometimes the jokes write themselves, and when a player who's doing very well in the game draws godlike, it's like you don't even have to tell the joke. You just say what word he has.
Though it looks like Austin may have just taken up the only spot.
Yeah, and actually, I think this is a good idea. Probably better than hit. Gets rid of one more consonant, so your draw is less likely to go wrong. And I think most importantly, keeps this E open for bingos. That's really nice, keeping RST. So that feels very nice, not just for the fact that it blocked godlike, but for several other reasons too.
Ben with another option, not going to score quite as much, but he has the option of goad-like, which is similar to godlike, has the letters in the same order. A little bit of a weird word. I think of goad as a verb. Verbs don't usually take like, but it is a word, and Ben has it for, I think, how much is that? I think
that is 70 points. So a good 70-point bingo from Ben is going to put him up by almost 200 here. We see kind of Austin smiling a little bit. He knows now he's even laughing. He knows that his luck on stream has been quite poor this tournament, despite his good record. This one feels over after Ben's 70-point goad-like.
Yeah, this is a interesting spot. Austin quickly putting down his only bingo of Stormer. Gonna be hard to even think about a way to come back now, but if it still exists at all, it does start with this, an immediate bingo. So, yeah, Austin probably thinking, oh God, why did they put me on stream? This is just an inevitable loss. But still 3 games tomorrow for Austin to come back. Third place, despite 0-6 on stream, would certainly be somewhat of a story to tell.
Yeah, and I think if Austin has any quibbles with this, definitely talk to our producer Josh. He's probably cursed the board in some way, and you'll need Josh to lift that curse.
Yeah, one of the things you don't know is that right before we turn the player mics on, we have Josh tell them who the designated winner is. It has been Austin's opponent in all 6 of his games. We do this to increase drama. If you don't know, I am completely kidding. This is not what we do here. But Ben with some vowels and Austin with a bingo. We'll see if it stays open. If ever there was a way for Austin to come back, it would involve something like this. That said, wouldn't be surprised to see Ben obstruct the bottom of the board. Even if it looks pretty paranoid, the bottom is really the only place to make anything happen. So would not be surprised at all to see something like anything. Yeah.
Just something here probably would be most likely thing. Something actually over here to the left of goad-like would not block Careener. It would still just barely fit here. Actually, no, sorry, that is incorrect. It does start here. So a play in that area of the board would stop.
Yeah,
Actually, yeah.
Ben with one style points play. Don't think it's correct because it makes no effort to block the board, but he does have a disconnected 8-letter word with some nice fits, getting rid of a lot of his vowels.
Yeah, we'll leave that as another puzzle for chat, I suppose. If you're still engaged with this game, we know it's a little bit of a blowout in Ben's favor, but Ben does have a nice vowel dump word. Again, as Matt mentioned, that doesn't really do any of the things he wants this turn, but it does score some style points. We always joke that at some point they should let us cash in our style points for actual points. I don't know if NASPA's any closer to codifying that in the rules.
Yeah, that play would be very nice. Not sure if we see it in the chat, but I can spoil it now. It is exonumia. Yarao does a good job partially obstructing the E. Will not be enough this time. I would have preferred seeing something like Oh No's on the triple, maybe something that went down on the G column to obstruct the E. We are going to see Austin with a chance with his bingo. That said, still a pretty slim chance, but this is the best he can hope for right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm curious if Ben was actually just going for another bingo on that row himself. He did keep nicely with INOS. He was thinking if he drew some consonants, he might just be hitting a bingo there. If Austin doesn't, he might have just been trying to run up the spread a little bit. It didn't work out. If that was indeed his plan, it didn't work out for him. Austin hit it first. And we see Austin's not drawn bingo letters. Even if he did draw bingo letters, Matt, there's nowhere to go on this board. Does not take an S. There's this G on the other side, but there's only 6 spots above it. You can't play bingo there. This line in the middle of the board ending in a U, that's basically impossible. There's not going to be another bingo getting down onto this board.
Yeah, it was going to be hard. One thing I see is Cenobites. That would require a C to be unseen. I think it might be correct anyways for Ben to block that area. I don't know if anything exists, but feel like with the shape of this board, if anything were to exist, it would be over there. Actually, taking a back Y, maybe that is the area to block. Maybe we'll see Ben do something like Virat through the R in Stormer. That would seem to be a safe choice. I don't even know if there is anything. Had Ben not drawn the N, things like Toyland would be available.
Yeah, that's actually a good call. There is a very marginal bingo line on that spot of the board. The Y doesn't naturally go in the middle of words. It always usually comes at the end. So that's a very hard spot for Austin to bingo on. He would need exactly the right letters. But it is worth thinking about. Ben is only up by about 60 points in this game. So if Austin did have an 80-point bingo over there and Ben didn't score well on this turn, we could enter an end game that's actually relatively evenly matched. So Ben does have to be a little bit careful here. Yeah, as you mentioned, Matt, I'm not sure if there is anything involving Sty, but Ben needs to be aware of that spot.
Yeah, if Ben was absolutely sure that it was safe, he could play something like Vibiest if he's worried about nines. That said, there's also the option of Vin. Vin scores 30 points, and it's hard to imagine Austin coming back after that, although it would probably be possible if Austin had a bingo with the Y unseen. I don't think one exists. Maybe we will see Ben play something like Virat just to be a little bit more cautious here.
Yeah, he doesn't really have good plays next to Hint. I guess if he wanted to exercise the most extreme amount of caution, he could just do something like TO there. But that keeps the V and doesn't score very well. It does sort of expose him to miracle 9-letter words through UN or BI that he might not be thinking about. So I think he does want to keep the scoring pressure up a little bit here. Vrot kind of does a nice job of splitting the difference, scores decently enough, and does block probably everything. Yeah, it's just really hard to imagine a bingo with a Y and then a T and then an O. That just seems totally impossible. So something like Vrat is seems like a good idea here.
Yeah, I like that idea. I think we actually know that there's no way for Ben really to go wrong, barring something insane. Ben might not be able to figure out in game that there is nothing with the Y. We are not Nigel Richards. If you want to see that, go to NWL. But he is struggling there too. But yeah. Yeah,
Ben,
Ben with no, he is probably worried something is possible with the Y. Don't blame him at all. I would probably do something like this.
yeah, definitely in a situation like this where you're trying to make a run at some extra cash, you've got it feels almost like a guaranteed win here. You don't want to blow it in some fashion. So he's going to play it safe here and just play off NO, blocking the most likely, what seems to be the most likely spot for bingos, although we know there wasn't actually anything available. And Austin was, as we can see from our privileged position up here in the commentary booth, he was nowhere close to a bingo. He was probably going to use his Y in that spot, but it was not going to be as a bingo. Now he's probably looking at something like Yin, which is where Ben could have played last turn.
Yeah, Austin with relatively few options here kind of just has to make a play and move on to the next day. Maybe I would try to keep my Y. Maybe I would just play it off. You can actually kind of put the Y in either the double letter or the triple letter. They're both producing a lot of points. I might prefer Yin to unduplicate the I's. Something like Yod or Yad, Y-A-D. Another good option. They score 30 points apiece. There's a couple of different ways to do it. We will see what Austin comes up with. It's super nice to see these players in good spirits. They did not make the finals, but they are still in it and they are having a good time, which is what matters the most.
So we are getting, it looks like Ben was clapping a little bit there. It looks like we just got word that Nigel Peltier just beat Nigel Richards. There's a battle of the Nigels going on, and Peltier came out on top. So I believe Peltier is going to the finals over in NWL land.
Yeah, we did get our exciting Nigel in the finals, although I'm not sure if this was what people had in mind. It seems like a little bit of a genie playing a trick on us, but congratulations to Nigel Peltier. I know it probably is annoying being in someone else's shadows. Peltier with the hardest path of us all towards being the best player with a specific name.
Yeah, indeed. He's always been overshadowed as the lesser Nigel, but I guess in this tournament at least he is the greater Nigel. So again, nicely done to him. I guess he will be playing either Mac Meller or Chris Cree in the finals, depending on how their game ends up.
Yeah, Benji with the very nice fit of Vivius, definitely a solid option. Probably the best option, makes it very easy to go out in two. Austin with a nice play of Elodia. If he can see it, it plays to the left of Godalike. It will not be enough, but it will cut the margin significantly.
Yep, that would be a very good play. We expect Austin to see it. I guess he could also play Idola for a few fewer points if he misses Elodia. Either one's going to be pretty good here. We also see in chat that we do have to shout out Eric Fox, who is our SPC Division 2 Collins champion, I think running away with it. So nicely done to Eric Fox for a really dominating performance in the Division 2 CSW field.
Yeah, definitely. I think if I'm reading the comments correctly, can't tell is if Mac Meller has won or not. I see some comments hinting at it, but I'm not sure. The broadcast tomorrow, for those of you who don't know, is actually going to be a little bit later. The finals is not starting until 10 or so. I think we will start the pregame commentary sometime around 10 at 10. We are considering one round 29 game similar to this at 9. We are figuring that part out. Barring that, the commentary will start at 10 or so.
Yep. So basically, just tune in at the normal time. Set that aside in your schedule. We might be showing one game before the finals. Otherwise, finals will start around 10:15 Eastern time.
Yeah, and Ben with TW putting the very nice play of wit down.
Yep.
We are going to see Ben win. I think the score is 4-0-4 for Austin and 4-7-1 for Ben.
Let's see if they have anything to say.
Yep. Should do that.
Hi, Dad.
Hey, Lindsay. So wherever the
Yeah,
camera is.
I hope you're well, hope Oliver's well. Yeah. Good on you for taking care of
Yeah.
the kids while Austin and
Get to play. Yeah.
and I'm
That's
sure you're
what
very
they
proud
say.
of. I'm sure you're very proud of Andrew and Christian. They do great work.
Sure do. Sure do. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was a game of
What
Scrabble.
I could do, really.
Probably not. All right.
Let's do pictures. Let's see real quick.
Not hearing too much post-mortem there. I think Austin's a little bit bummed that his bad luck on stream just seems to have no end.
Yeah, definitely a disappointing thing. He wanted to show his game off. I know I don't like going that badly on stream. I had a tournament where I was 1-4 on stream, even though I cashed, but this is just really unfortunate to see. Thank you so much for watching this. I know it took a little bit longer to get through this time.